Hello lovely people, today I am going to be doing a dual review of both Half Bad and Half Wild by Sally Green. Now I'm really surprised that I haven't done a review on this. Now I've obviously done a Goodreads review on this, but I thought I did a video review. I should have checked before I made this video, but if I have I'll link it down below, but I'm pretty certain that I haven't got a review on this. So yeah, I'm obviously going to be starting with Half Bad, which is the first in what's going to be a trilogy. I think it's just called the Half Bad trilogy. I read this back in July 2014 and I really loved it. I gave it a solid 4.5 stars and I really enjoyed the story, so it was agonising having to wait for the second book to come out. This is going to contain spoilers, so I will warn you now. I just want to randomly talk about the cover first. This has kind of like a different design on the back, but like kind of mirroring the front, and it doesn't really have a blurb as such, and I think that is just to throw you in the deep side. You kind of unravel things as it goes. I think it makes the story more mysterious and really cool like that. So yeah, if you don't know by now what the story is about, you really shouldn't be watching this. It is about witches, black witches and white witches and fanes, which are humans all living together. Fanes not sure a lot of the time that witchcraft and that exists, so they're kind of naive in that sense. Black witches and white witches hate each other. So our protagonist is called Nathan. He is a half code, so he's half black and half white witch. I found that the writing style used to voice him is really strange. It's got like a really unique twist, and at some point I found that if any of you guys have read The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, it kind of has similar writing style to that. I think it's because Sally Green wrote in a way where it's blunt, straight to the point, slightly humorous, even if it may not supposed to be, but it's just kind of like short, sweet, awkward. You can tell that Nathan may have some kind of people issues. I don't know if it goes any deeper than that, but he's certainly not a people person, so you can just hear the discomfort in the way he speaks. So in terms of getting on with Nathan in this very first book, I had a increasingly growing strong connection to him. It started off a bit like cold, but I don't know, it grew. Definitely by the second book I enjoy him as a protagonist, and I can not relate, but I can understand how he is. At first I didn't really like his relationship with Annalise, and that definitely carried on through to the second book. I feel like she's annoying. I don't feel like he's good for her, but these are my own personal beliefs of them two together. I don't know, I feel like she's, in this book specifically, obviously got hair on my lip, trailing him along just for her amusement. Obviously it becomes clearer that she does like him, but I don't know, I just don't like the way she goes about things. In the first book it just makes me feel like she's a bit of a bitch, dragging him along, especially, now this is why I said there's spoilers, because I'm going to be talking about situations in detail, especially when she ran off and pretty much, I know she didn't know what was going to happen, but she did allow her three brothers, I think it's three, to torture Nathan, and I thought that was disgusting. Like, if you like someone and you know your brothers really don't, or anything, I personally would stay with them. I would tell them where to go, and I would at least run with Nathan, you know. I know it sounds different saying that, it's easy enough said than done, but I think I would honestly stay with the person I was with to keep them out of harm's way, because, I mean, surely if your family loved you enough, they wouldn't proceed to hurt this person if you're there physically blocking them, you know. So I think she could have at least tried, but obviously she didn't. So I think just that situation in itself really made me dislike Annalise as a character, and that certainly carried through to the second book. So when Gabriel was introduced, it was kind of like an insta-love thing, and I didn't really agree with that in the beginning. It was like a first sight love, and I don't really like romance that much in stories anyway, when it's supposed to be like a higher fantasy kind of novel, or like, you know, urban fantasy or whatever, but that love was just a bit pathetic. It was just all of a sudden, no reason, no cause for it, it just happened, and that bugs me a little bit, but I grew to it over time. I don't know, it was just too instantaneous and didn't feel like natural. It was just like, oh my god, I love you, you're a badass, you're mine, that kind of thing. So you do see Nathan growing older in this book, and I think that the writing style could have changed and adapted better to how he then like spoke and presented himself, because I do think he did, even though it wasn't a lot, I feel like as he was growing up he did change a little bit inside, and I think that should have reflected more on the writing, but it was the same kind of blunt, straight to the point, awkward kind of phrases. But I mean, I still love the writing style, I just think it could have grew a little bit more as he grew as a character, but that's not a problem at all. It's still made for an interesting and really cool read. Overall, I really loved this book. It had like a really good pace, really good rhythm to it, and it kept me like going with the flow throughout the whole duration. I really recommend this, and I'm going to say I recommend the whole trilogy, even though there's one more book to wait for, which is coming out March 2016. I can't wait. So yeah, recommend Half Bad, and it is awesome. If you haven't read Half Wild, I definitely will urge you now not to watch this part either. If you have read it, then carry on, feel free to read it. Now, because I'm guessing most of the audience, obviously if you've read the first book, you know what the series is about generally, so it doesn't have any like hiddenness about the blurb or anything like that. It says a few points about, you know, the main gist of the story, so there's no like mystery there because you know what the story is about, you've invested in it already. Now this cover is beautiful. I'm so glad they're keeping this theme, but this has to be that indoor smoke stuff they smell, right? It's got to be that, because I was reading, I was like, oh, it's green, oh, it must be this. So I think that's the smoke that they smell when they're indoors. Don't quote me, it might be, it might not be. It's awesome though. Anyway, I dropped half a point for this book. I gave it just 4 stars because although it was an awesome book, I don't think it lived up to Half Bad at all in the slightest. It was just it was more of a chore to read through. Maybe it's because all of a sudden there was an increase in characters, although I will talk a bit about that in a bit, how I enjoyed that as well, so it's kind of got 2 sides to it. It just didn't have the same feel to the story as Half Bad had. Now, although I do think it was more of a chore to get through, I kept putting it down a lot of times. It was a quick start and the excitement started from the get-go, but it was quite overwhelming. I think it is because where there was such a big gap from the first and the second book being released, I had forgotten quite a lot of what had happened, so I did have to go back and read the last few pages of Half Bad just to kind of get my bearings back again. After that, although I was still kind of cloudy with what was going on, I understood a lot more, and I could put myself back in the zone and remember what was going on, who was who in relation to Nathan, you know, as a character, what they were there for. I slowly kind of remembered things like that. But to be honest, I think that's a problem with anything when you have a long wait in a series, you know. You're going to forget things, and I don't think that was any fault of Sally Green's. I just think that was, you know, memory. It goes sometimes. You need a bit of help restoring it. So obviously the plot was a continuation from where we left off. Nathan's just had his giving, Annalise is still in that death sleep, I think it's called, and Gabriel is missing. He has, I think, led the hunters away and he's missing. So Nathan is coming back time and time again, months on end, to this location where they had agreed to meet if anything went wrong or after everything's sorted, and Gabriel is still not there. This is when we're introduced to a new character called Nesbit, an Australian guy who we find out is half-blood. I think he's half-black, witch. So he comes across as very cocky, but I warmed up to him. I can see how it would irritate Nathan because he does things to irritate Nathan. A lot of stuff happens before they move on to meet Van, who Nesbit claims has Gabriel. So, you know, Gabriel, Nathan, pretty much best friends, even though Gabriel has more intense feelings for him. He rushes to his rescue, if you will it, and, you know, things unravel from there. I thought it was really good because in the end, it was less about trying to get Gabriel's abilities back, and it was also less about trying to save Annalise. After all that was done, out of the way, there was a bigger picture, and I loved that Sally Green put that in there. I think it was a bigger goal, and it was nothing to do with love or anything like that. It was about justice and, you know, making it so both black witches, white witches, everyone can just live how they lived before without Soul and whoever else dominating and trying to kill everybody, pretty much. I think it brought everybody together, and I think having such a goal like that where it includes everyone is a good thing. I'm really stumbling over my words, I'm sorry, but hopefully you'll understand what I'm saying. I keep trying to hold back from spoilers, but I have already told you that there are spoilers in this, so I've just got to kind of relax a bit more and let it come out and flow however my words want to. So yeah, I've mentioned a few new characters, but there are more new characters, and I think that's great in a story because you get to see more how Nathan copes and grows with the help of these new characters being like thrown in. It's a good use of those people. You get to see more advantages or disadvantages of the protagonist that you have. So yeah, it definitely helped his personality progress, so that's great. So I just remembered there was a bonus book in this, and it is called Half Lies. It's like a short novella explaining how Gabriel actually lost his powers and whatever. So I thought it was great that Sally Green added this because it definitely filled a hole where there was a hole. It filled a gap, is what I'm saying. I won't go too much in that because I don't know if it was just this edition that I got in Waterstones, because it had a sticker, but they may be lying, that has that little novella. So I'll just tell you what it's about briefly. I've also got a link down below to the reviews on both of these books, so you can check it out if you want. I do go into a little bit more detail, but I wouldn't say there's anything spoilery in there. Just let me have a quick read of that. No, I wouldn't say there's got any spoilers in there. Half Wild is actually following a diary entry of Gabriel's sister, Michelle. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. She is, I think, like a year younger than Gabriel, and it's basically explaining how Gabriel lost his powers and leading up to her death, what really happened. To be honest, I was a little bit disappointed with it. If I was rating it on its own, I'd probably give it maybe a 2 or a 3, just because I thought it was going to be more intense, more dramatic than what it actually was. I feel like maybe if Gabriel had talked about it more in the main series, I might have appreciated a bit more. So even though it did fill the gap, it wasn't needed. I could have lasted the rest of the trilogy not knowing really what happened to his sister and how he lost his powers. It wasn't as extreme as I was expecting. I don't know why, but it was still a really good extra, if you will, to have. So, you know, if you want to get this specific edition, it looks like this. Like this. I got it from Waterstones. Then it will most likely have the Half Lies little novella thing at the back. So that is all for my review on Half Bad and Half Wild. I think they're both great books, and I cannot wait for the last in the trilogy to come out in March 2016. As I said, links to my Goodreads and the reviews specifically for both of these books down below. If you want to add me as a friend, feel free. I accept anybody. So yeah, I'll leave it there, and goodbye.